Welcome to EternalJourney, the podcast.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of EternalJourney, the podcast that talks about all things eternal with a focus on limited play. Welcome back. This is episode 47 of the podcast, and we are finally getting to that draw or redraw show entitled A Better Than Six. So today, as always, I have on the line Darth Herman 2. What is up, buddy? How are you?
What's up, fellas? Good to be with you guys today. Doing well.
Good, glad to hear it. And live in the studio today, we have our another co-host, Stormtrooper JohnHolio. What is up, buddy?
Hey, what's going on?
Looked really good. It actually worked out great introing you to Darth Herman. That kind of worked out pretty well. I like that. But all right, guys, like I said, this is episode 47. We're going to be talking about mulliganing or redrawing and whatnot, which is a good level up episode. But first, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Just want to mention the YouTube channel. That's right, EJthePodcast. You can look up, or actually, EternalJourney. I'm sorry, I have to correct that on my show notes. EternalJourney on YouTube. Boom, got the address. Thanks to you guys, all those great subscribers that followed the channel has made it happen. So now it's officially EternalJourney. You guys can check it out where you find draft videos, special event videos. Hopefully I can convince JohnHolio and Darth Herman to start posting some of their draft videos on there as well. But definitely a lot of great content on there, to include the video version of this show where you could have just seen JohnHolio dressed up as a stormtrooper, which is kind of funny because I actually have two stormtrooper helmets in that closet right behind you. So that's kind of funny.
I've got the sweatshirt version.
It still looks really
probably.
It still looked really good, actually. Yeah. And less fogging. But
right.
So yeah, definitely check that out. Next up, cube drafting. That's right. For those of you that don't know, cube drafting is a design that I brought over from MTG Magic the Gathering, where every Sunday we draft a format of my own choosing and creation. We draft 5 curated packs. You build a deck in the Eternal Warcry client, and then you export it to the Eternal client. We battle out against each other. It's completely free to watch and join and participate. So definitely check it out every Sunday on my stream. You can catch my stream every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ. And finally, that leads us into our subscriber shout out section. So we have one new Padawan in the Jedi Order this week, and it is Potato Princess. Potato Princess, thank you so much for the sub. Really appreciate it. Glad you're enjoying the content. Thank you for hanging out. You're a fantastic chatter. Really appreciate having you in the chat. Of course, we'll always have more Yetis as long as you're around. So thank you, Potato Princess. And of course, as always, thank you to all the ongoing resubs. Really appreciate you guys growing the Jedi Order one Padawan at a time. Slowly but surely been upgrading tonight and whatnot, and get all of us better at Eternal. So thank you guys so much. One day we'll have a top 8 exclusive ECQ with just Jedis in there. Maybe a couple of Sith, since Alex is on the show. Awkward. But all right.
Yeah.
Sweet. Do you guys have any shout outs, any good things that happened to you guys this week you want to talk about?
Is that a great holiday and everything?
Yeah, true. It was just coming off of Christmas.
Jedi.
Yeah. JohnHolio is in town, came into town visiting family, and then as a byproduct decided like, yo, let's get together and kick it. And I said, why not? So we is. And that's what's going down. So sweet. All right. Pack one, pick one. We're going to move it on the screen right now. So you're just going to have to listen very intently here, Darth. All right.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so at the common levels, of course, we have Static Bolt. So serviceable in the spell damage deck, but and it does do a little bit of removal, right? You want like 2 in your deck, but I'm not very excited about first picking this card. Nothing going on here. Moving on, we have Hot-Blooded Barbarian. This is Static Bolt is a 1 damage slow spell at common, and it had for 2 and a blue. As Fate, increase the damage dealt by Static Bolt in your hand and deck by 1. So, yeah, it works better in multiples, but not really excited about first picking it.
Right.
John, our next card is Hot Blood Barbarian. This is the 2/1 warrior at common for 2 and a fire. Has Berserk, and then summon. You may discard a card to create and draw Temper. And then Temper is 1 damage 1 cost fast spell for 1 damage, and then the top unit or weapon of your deck gets a +1/+1. How you feel about this card?
I like it okay, but it's definitely a replacement level in that 2-drop slot for fire decks.
Yep.
So definitely not looking to first pick.
All right. Next up, we have Astromancer's Compass, which we're not even going to waste our breath talking about.
No thanks.
Sabotage is serviceable, but not something you want first pick. Sabotage is a slow spell for 1 and a shadow. The enemy player discards a spell or attachment of your choice from their hand. It has some applications in limited, but not anything you're really excited to first pick. Our next common is quite a spicy one, so I'll let you talk about this one, Alex. This is Eviscerate. This is a slow spell, a common for 5 shadow, and it just reads kill an enemy unit. Clear cut unconditional removal. Has Onslaught. The enemy player discards the top 5 cards of their deck, which has had some additional synergies in this format. What do you think about Eviscerate, Alex?
Yeah, clear cut. First pick for me so far. Removal is hard to come by, and that's very clean. I know it costs 5, but there aren't very many answers to threats like that.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, though, considering the fact that you like 5-color good stuff, I have something that might actually argue or put up a fight against Eviscerate, so I'm going to let you start off on this one as well. This is Bannerman. This is a 2/2 for 2 neutral. Summon, gain an influence of your choice. What do you think about Bannerman, and does Bannerman beat Eviscerate for you?
I don't think so. If it was like a pack that didn't have a removal spell, I would maybe pick a Bannerman or a Seek Power, but I don't mind going into Shadow. It might be the strongest color. I don't know. It's worked really well for me anyways. I know people would disagree probably, but the Eviscerate is just such a clean answer to pretty much anything that no, I wouldn't take Bannerman over Eviscerate. First pick anyways.
Nice. Okay, cool. And that's coming from a guy that likes 5-color good stuff. So where are you at on it, John?
Yeah, I agree with Alex on that. It's just too good to not pass up for pack 1 pick 1 as opposed to Bannerman.
Even though Bannerman being completely neutral.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know.
No, I get it. I honestly value removal, so I'd pick the Eviscerate as well. Okay. But there is an argument for Bannerman just because it keeps you completely open.
Yeah, I wouldn't fault anybody for going that direction. Yep. But
all right, next up is Token of Knowledge. This is the Time Primal Shadow token, but yeah, it's not going to beat Bannerman or Eviscerate. We'll move on. All right, John, or actually, I'll take this one. We have Slope Sergeant, which is the 4/4 Yeti for 6 Primal. It has Bond. When you bond Slope Sergeant, draw 2, then discard 2. So this card is powerful in the Yeti deck. That being said, Yetis are 100% a synergy-based deck, and I'm not super excited about first picking this. This is the Yetis you kind of want to see that you're getting past Yetis before you dive into it. So I'm not very excited about taking Slope Sergeant first, especially when there's a Bannerman and Eviscerate.
I agree.
All right. John, we have Sky Crag Wivark. This is a 3/3 flying dragon, an uncommon for 5 primal, and it has flying and killer.
I like this card quite a bit. I liked it in prior formats, and I think I like it even more here because of the potential to immortalize with those keywords. That really is very appealing to me.
Oh yeah, spicy.
Yeah, like it doesn't require as much setup as other similar things. Like it's already got like 2 of the better keywords you can go for that, and a lot of times you get to remove an X2 and keep around a 3/3 flying beater. So I'm definitely considering making this my pack 1 pick 1. I'm not 100% sure over Eviscerate here. But I don't know. If I'm feeling spicy, I'm definitely going to lean this direction.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Alex, where are you at on Skycrag Wivark?
I do like that card a lot. It's a very cool dragon. I think it's a dragon anyways.
It is.
But yeah, and then so like it leaves behind the 3/3 flyer if you can kill something that stays alive. There's a couple relevant 2/3s like the lifelink Shadow Wolf. And the 2/3 in Rakano that like kills cleanly,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
But I think I'm still on Eviscerate though, because I would rather be in Shadow than Primal.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm on the Eviscerate plan because it's unconditional versus conditional. Granted, you do get the body, but sometimes the 3 just doesn't do enough. So Eviscerate's always good whenever you draw it. Minus turn 3 when you're stuck on 3 power,
Right.
but but yeah, I think I like Wivark. I do agree with you, but I think of the 2 colors, I'd prefer to be in the Shadow faction and then just unconditional removal over situational. But Wivark does win the game when Eviscerate just stops you from losing it, so that's a consideration. All right, next uncommon is a personal favorite of mine. This is Cover Fire Marksman. This is a 2/2 gunslinger at uncommon for 3 and a fire. It has double damage, and then shift 5. Give one of your other units double damage until Cover Fire Marksman emerges, which is something I have a little bit of a story that we'll throw in later on about this card getting blown out on stream. But yeah, so Alex, where are you at on Cover Fire Marksman? I like this card a lot. This, man, I don't necessarily... I think I might consider beating Eviscerate with this guy, only because it's a 3/3, or it's a 3-drop, it's a 5-drop that helps you win the game, and then it makes any of your other cards a threat, and then it's single fire versus double shadow. So I don't know, I'm still kind of on the fence. What about you?
I kind of like it in the combo that it would be with the Eviscerate, like in the Stone Scar deck, because I like throwing that double damage on emerging shifted guy. It works really good on that turn particularly. No, I wouldn't fault you for getting this guy first. It's just on its own, the 2/2, if you're not being able to basically put the double damage on another on another unit, I think I like the Eviscerate better.
Mm-hmm.
But the 2/2 has more like utility, I guess. I don't know if that makes sense.
I mean, it makes one of your smaller guys able to block and trade up. It puts a threat on the board. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The fact that it shifts, like if you're just dropping on 3, it's kind of lackluster. But if you're able to shift it on something, and then potentially it is so they have to deal with that double damage, and then they still have to deal with this thing being double damage. I think there's some utility there that may beat out Eviscerate, but I don't know. At the same time, it is just clean removal too, so it's tough. How about you, John?
Like, I think I'd be more on the Eviscerate versus the Marksman here. I'm with you. Like, I like this card a lot. But yeah.
I think over another unit, I would take Marksman, but it's hard to pass up Eviscerate.
It really is.
But the way it plays out for me a lot is I'll put the double damage on something else that ends up chump blocking or trading with something, and then I have a shifted unit for a couple turns. So it's like it kind of, the effect is gone pretty fast usually if you're not like on the beatdown, basically.
Yeah, if the shifted unit, if the unit that has double damage doesn't die, you're pretty much already winning at that point.
Oh yeah.
Basically, yeah, that's the point I was trying to make. It's like a win more card, you know.
And then when it comes unshifted, you get the 4 points of damage on the attack, and then sometimes that 2/2 double damage will also trade up on the next turn if it's got to be on defense after that.
Yeah, especially if you slap a weapon on it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Warhorn's a thing, right? You could play this and then Warhorn it the next turn. I've done that. But all right. So kind of still on the fence. We do have a rare. Our last uncommon is Dune Phantom. This is the 0/3 illusion, 3 in a time, flying in ambush. Yeah, not really. Or 0/6. I think I said, what did I say? 0/3? It's a 0/6. Anyway, it's not beating Eviscerate, Cover Fire Marksman, or Wivark, so we'll move on. All right, our rare, Alex, you can start off on this one, is Imperial Loyalist. This is the 4/3 warrior for 4 justice. It has pledge. And then Renown, play another unit of your choice from your deck with cost equal to or less than the spell or weapon. So, how do you feel about Imperial Loyalist? And then how do you feel about it compared to the rest of the pack or the rest of our considerations?
I mean, it's an okay card. It's a good Renown effect, but I think I'm still on the Eviscerate plan.
Yeah, I mean, what are you really doing with this? Like, draw strength isn't going to do anything with it.
No, it's more for like a Warhorn or something.
Warhorn, that's what I'm thinking. Warhorn, and I mean, Warhorn gets you some stuff. It gets you the Imperial Loyalist. In the next turn, you play the Warhorn on it, and then shift the Cover Fire Marksman and just go to town.
Yeah, it has some applications, but it requires a lot of setup to be good.
Yeah,
and then it still has the it's just 3 toughness.
Dies the conflagrate.
It's added for 5.
Yeah, it's a little easier to remove with cheaper spells. It's it's more of a setup part. I mean, it definitely has some potential payoff, but
All right, so
eviscerate.
eviscerate for you, Alex. Where are you at? Still eviscerate?
Yep, I would take eviscerate.
Yep. All right. The eyes have it. We're taking eviscerate on this one, and I agree with you guys. I think it's close. It's very close. So I think whenever it goes close, I have to go back to the foundations of drafting and just go with the removal.
Removal.
Yeah.
Hard removal. Hard to come by in this format. Shadow's a good color.
Yep. All right, sweet guys. Well, that was our pack one pick one for this week. It was actually, we got lucky. I just literally opened that pack. It ended up being a decent discussion. So hope you guys got a little something out of that. Let us know in the comments below or live on stream if you would have picked something different. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for all our preliminary stuff, which means we're going to dive into our topic about drawing and redrawing and dropping down to 6. This is a typical level up show, I would say, where the points we're going to make today and the skills will be something you apply both to constructed and limited for as long as you're playing. They are not specific to any one format. We're going to talk about the different things like deck considerations, what your hand's looking like, your curve, things like that, and hopefully just able to make it to where you lose less games before you even take your turn 1. And I think everyone that is listening to this podcast has experienced one of those games where you maybe mull down to 6, you keep 2 power, and you never see your 3rd power, and that's all she wrote, and ends up being a non-game. So those are kind of the ones where I feel people tilt the most, and I actually feel like they should tilt the least because that was completely out of your control. You did what you did, what you could. But yeah, so we're talking about drawing and redrawing today. So let's go ahead and start off right away with power, right? One of the biggest things that can motivate you to redraw a hand is the fact that you don't have enough power or you have too much power. So real quick, John, can you break down the dynamics of the hand drawing system for Eternal for us?
Sure. It's definitely a unique system for these types of card games. Your first hand is not guaranteed to be anything. It's just a random 7 after your deck is shuffled off the top of your deck. So
you're allowed to have 1 or 6, right? I think it is. Like you're guaranteed a minimum 1.
No, it's
really?
As far as I know, it's just it's no guarantee at all. Now that you mention that though, I don't know if I've ever seen a literal 0 power hand.
No, I think someone told me on stream that you're guaranteed
that could
1
be
power.
true.
1 or 6.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it other than that. So that might be
it
correct.
Wouldn't be 7, but you're guaranteed at least 1, but not all 7 would be.
I take back what I first said there. I've already learned something.
There you go.
No, like I've literally never seen a 0 power hand, so that makes sense. But it's with those constraints, it's still like a 1 power or a 6 power hand is definitely not ideal for a starting hand. So it's easier to take that first redraw in this game than it might be in some other games because you're on that second redraw. I guess on the first redraw, you're guaranteed to have between 2 and 4 power in your opening hand, which is usually like a good amount for a starting hand. So there's a little less risk to taking that first mulligan if your opening hand is super questionable. And you still get a full 7 cards. And then on the next redraw is the last one you have available. You'll go down to 6 cards, and you're still guaranteed between 2 and 4 power, just down a card.
And just for technical purposes, I believe Direwolf calls it a desperate redraw. So you'll go down to 6. One other thing to add on what John mentioned is that the algorithm for your hand design only counts power for that 2 to 4 power.
Right.
So things like seek power and what's the other? Cargos do not count towards that power.
Right. Or any creature that might summon power or give you influence, like none of that's considered at all. It's literally something labeled as a power card.
Yeah. So it will count tokens, it will count sigils, emblems, all that stuff, but it does not count things that get you power, essentially. So that's one of the unique things about being a strictly digital game is that Direwolf was able to implement that kind of algorithm there to help make the game kind of help less non-games, so to speak.
And especially if it's a best of 1 situation, which it almost always is.
Yep. So now to tack on to that, the one thing I will say, to just throw it out there, is that in limited, because resources are so finite, it is excruciatingly painful to go down to 6. So you have to be very cautious about when you do it. That being said, there are going to be times where you want to still go to 6, and you have to ask yourself, is this 7 better than 6? And sometimes it's not. And so you do go down. And if you guys have caught my stream, there have been plenty of times where I've gone down to 6 and gotten the best hand out of the 3 and gone to win that game.
Right.
So that is something. What's your opinion, real quick, on going down to 6?
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely. Like, going to 6 is worst case scenario for your opening hand, but it's certainly not a death sentence. Especially if you have a lot of, like, a lower curve, then it's a little less risky and things like that. I don't know, like, if you just have an unplayable 7, even if you have 3 or 4 power, but the rest of your hand is just 6 drops, that's extremely risky.
Yeah.
Like, no interaction or no early plays is basically a death sentence in limited.
Yeah. We'll get into that a little bit later. So, Alex, go ahead and break it down a little bit as far as what we're looking at when we look at the 2 to 4 power rule. Like, what does our power want to look like for our opening hands?
Well, the fact that you can when you get the 2 to 4, that's like a kind of a sweet spot on power that you would want in your opening hand. What tips or tricks you would use to, like, know when to redraw? Is that what you're saying?
Well, in reference to power, because I mean, personally, like, for example, for me, I really, really, really try not to keep 2 power hands. I prefer to have 3, because even if you draw power off the top, that's kind of eating up one of your chances of drawing power. If obviously, but then getting stuck at 3 seems really harsh to me in a limited game, because really you're still in the development phase. You really want to get to at least 4 power to be able to do stuff. And, like, for example, our pack 1 pick 1 eviscerates 5 power. And we all have been playing long enough to know that you're not going to draw every power right when you need it. Sometimes your next power can be 3 or 4 turns. So, like, how do you feel about keeping 2 power hands?
I guess it depends on, your curve. Do you have a lot of 2 drops? Are the 2 powers that you have in your hand the 2 predominant colors in your deck? Mm-hmm. Like, what is your hand consisted of? Do you have, like, 2 of the 2 drops in your hand and then maybe a 3 and a 4 drop? Is there 18 power in your deck? If you have 18 power and you're on the draw, I tend to keep a lot of 2 power hands if the cards in my hand are, like, playable, as long as I draw my 3rd one.
Now, are you talking about on your opening hand, though, or, like, first mulligan to 7 there?
Yeah, no, on your opening hand or on your mulligan.
Okay.
On the, like, deciding to go down to 6, which, this system allows you to not get punished so much. You do only get punished sometimes when you, like, draw 4 power on that 6 and, like, 2 bigger units that aren't going to come out for a couple turns.
Yeah.
Then, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have had a 4 power,
Mm-hmm.
But it does help there not be non-games, basically. Like you guys were saying. And I guess it just depends on the curve of the deck. If I have a lot of big plays that I need 4, 5, 6 power for, then I might for sure go down and mulligan again to get to the 3rd or 4th power in my hand.
Yeah. So you really got to look at what your hand is, the influence, which is the next part we're going to get to. And then, of course, there's considerations of counting seek powers and cargoes and things of the like that go get you power, essentially as a power as well, to make sure you're able to play. And you really want to, man, it's really hard to actually outline this, because I was about to talk about, the game plan of your deck, but all this is, so I guess we should just cover everything as we come up to it. But the considerations are audible, and the considerations that you want to look at for whether to redraw or not are the power in the hand, the influence of the power, the curve considerations of your deck and of your hand, whether you're on the play or draw, and then obviously your deck's game plan. And we'll get, I guess we'll kind of bounce back and forth between all of them, because I don't think there's a way to talk about one without kind of mentioning the other.
Right.
But
I just kind of touched on all those. My bad.
No, you're good. We all have. I think I like having a little bit of structure, but I think this topic, because you have to consider everything at the same time, I think there's no way to talk about individual, and that's fine. So the next thing is your influence, right? Are you 2-color? Are you 3-color? What do you have? And this is stuff you need to know ahead of time of when you're looking at your deck. And you guys see it, if you see me on stream, I'm sure you guys do it too, where you go through your deck and you're counting up like, okay, where do I need my double time? Where do I need my double fire? Do I have, oh, look, I only need single justice the whole way, things like that. And that's what you need to look at when you're looking at your hand, you know. And of course, in this format specifically, we have things like Ancient Manual and we have Evangels. Evangels give you an influence. Of note, though, they do require double influence for them to cast themselves. So that's something that you have to take in consideration as well. And then obviously Ancient Manual, which is quite unique in the form that Ancient Manual gives you a power, it's fixing, but it only gives you influence that you don't already have. So you typically put it in there for that 2nd or 3rd color, but sometimes you already have that splash and it's a little awkward when you need that. It won't give you the 2nd influence.
Yeah, manuals definitely get worse when you're running double influence cards in your deck.
So how do those things influence, like, go ahead, John, like how do things like Evangels and Token, for example, that can be 3 colors, but obviously is only going to give you 1 influence, and Ancient Manuals, how do those work out for your
the main consideration there is, can you play maybe at least 2 stabilizing type cards from your hand with that influence? Or, you know, is when in your curve is your splash, like, is that Evangel really important to play on too? Or is just the 1 influence it gives you good enough to play like a good different 2 or 3 drop in your hand already? Like, those are all considerations.
See, and then here's something where Ancient Manual I want to talk about, as well as Tokens. Both Ancient Manual and Tokens come into play depleted. So they have the potential of throwing off your curve. So Alex, how important do you play, how much value do you put on interrupting your curve? Like, for example, if your hand is 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, but to get the correct influence off of, for example, the token, or more importantly, the Ancient Manual, you have to skip maybe your 2 or your 3-drop. How does that influence, or how much weight do you put on that when you're looking at whether to redraw or not?
Well, like, best case scenario, you have the manual in your opening hand if you have like a lot of double stuff, and you can you know, play it and pick the color that you're going to need double of. But
if you can't, let's say you have an Ancient Manual and a token, so one way or another you're going to have a depleted power somewhere other than turn 1.
So if you're talking about like how I would play them, I would play the token. I would you could keep that hand depending on how many you have, how much power you have in your deck, and the sequences of playing them would be depending on if you're drawing. You can like draw a power hopefully off the top that's going to help you decide what to play. But I don't really consider it too much of a detriment unless I'm coming up against a super aggressive deck to have the power come out depleted. I'm splashing for like powerful cards, so like cards that are going to help me get back in the games. So if I'm like behind on curve a little bit, it usually ends up being okay as long as I end up having the power to play the spells and units that I do actually have.
Gotcha.
So I guess it just it depends on, you know, those multiple faction decks. That's kind of fun figuring out which power to play out depleted, or what unit you're going to play, the order that you're going to play the manual in. That totally is a level up moment. It's just like kind of understanding your whole game plan as a whole. It's just, you know, it's something that I still struggle and work with. It seems like when I like mulligan good, I feel good still. So it's not something I feel I definitely have a grasp on. But yeah, it's just kind of playing it by feel, really. Just I can't describe it any other way.
There's no just straight up rules you can ever have. Like, every one of these is so important in that initial decision. Yeah,
there's so many factors that you're never going to make the same decision twice, which is one of the interesting things about this dynamic and why we play these card games.
Yeah, like I could be shown the exact same opening hand, but with 2 completely different decks, it might be okay here and might be not okay here.
Yeah. So John, how on influence, right? How do you feel about an evangel you cannot play, but you need the influence?
I mean, if that's helping me play a different powerful 2 or 3 drop, that's totally fine with me.
Okay.
Unless I'm playing a very aggressive deck and the Evangels on 2 is an important part of my game plan. Other than that, I'm very okay with it.
Okay. Yeah. And just a couple of general notes I want to make. The fact that the first redraw keeps you at 7, I think means that you can be very aggressive with that first redraw.
Absolutely.
It's just such a freebie. You know, essentially you're not losing anything. Of course, there's the occasional feel bad when the randomness gives you a worse hand, but overall, one of the level up moments I had in my limited or just Magic career period was when I decided to start mulliganing more aggressively, because I always had those feel bads. It's like, man, I don't know, I don't want to risk it, but I do feel like my win percentage increased quite significantly, like anywhere from 3 to 7 points by being more aggressive with my mulligans.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if it's like straight up medium or worse, like just go for it, right? Like especially in Eternal with the very generous first mulligan. Like,
yeah, because you know there's a good chance you're not going to get utterly, screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was definitely a time where I was hesitant to even go down a card ever, right? But when you just kind of get used to that and realize that you should probably mulligan, I mean, eventually you just kind of get used to doing that, and I don't know. I think mulliganing,
it becomes less stressful.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're just like that initial hump of willingness to even try it. Like once you get over that, like you start realizing that you're getting better, opening hands, even though you're going down to 6 sometimes.
Very true.
That is definitely the way to go sometimes. Like you can't be scared to just look at this basically unplayable hand. It's like, well, I just need this one thing and I might be okay. That's where you probably need to just go down a card and try again.
Yeah. The thing that I think some people kind of forget sometimes because it's best of one is to take in consideration what your opponent might be doing. There's sometimes where if it's a risky hand where I'm like, man, I don't know, like it might kind of get there. I like to view 2 things. A, what do I need to get there? And B, what happens if my opponent does X, Y, Z? When I'm looking at a hand that my first play is on turn 4, then I'm like, well, what happens if my opponent goes 2 drop, 3 drop, 4 drop? And I'm like, yeah, that just means I lose. So I'm like, nope.
Right.
Alex, what are your experiences or theories overall on redrawing? Are you really hesitant to do it? Do you kind of willy-nilly throw it down? What's up?
I mean, like you said, it lets you, the Eternal system lets you mulligan aggressively. So, which I think for limited is great. For constructed, it's probably not as good in the sense that like it would let combo decks kind of make sure that you have your pieces in your hand or whatever.
Yeah, it lets you be a little more degenerate and constructed with your deck construction, like basing it around the mulligan rules.
Yeah, totally. Like you even would go down to 6 more often because you're going to be guaranteed 2 at least, So
hopefully they don't let you game it completely. Like there is a minimum power of 1/3 for your deck. So like if you could go under that, you could be extremely degenerate in constructed.
That's true. So they do put that like cap on the minimum of power to like not let people fully break it in that sense. But for limited, it's great. It lets you, like you said, redraw very aggressively, even down to 6. It's like, say you have like, this is ridiculous, but 5 Longhorns, which I've had in a recent deck. I mulligan like, well, yeah, whatever. I mulligan down to like 6 3 times it was like a 7-win draft, and it's because I knew I'm like, all I need is 2 Longhorns in my opening hand, and like
they'll get you there.
Yeah, totally. So
yeah,
it totally depends on your deck, and like it lets you. That was kind of like abusing it a little bit. Like all I need is Longhorns,
especially since Longhorns in particular are overstated 2s that help you get power.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it pays you back for going down a card because it's gonna pull the power out of your deck. So go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that hits that deck's game plan perspective of it, where you want to identify what your deck is trying to do, and does that opening hand match that game plan? Because, for example, for you, you wanted to get on the board early and start swinging with your Longhorns. So any hand that didn't have a Longhorn in it, you were incentivized to redraw.
Yeah, even if it had two or more power, just because you want the Longhorns. You know, I don't remember if I mulliganed a hand that didn't have a Longhorn, but I had the power in it. I probably didn't have a hand that didn't have a Longhorn, to be honest with you. But
and it goes across the board. If you end up drafting a Rakano or Stone Scar aggressive deck, and you know your deck's game plan is to get on the board early and have that 2-drop, maybe even 1-drop, and put pressure on your opponent early, then you have to look at a hand, and even if it has 3 power, but your first play is on 3 or 4, maybe it's on 3 and you're on the draw, then that's too slow for your deck, and you know you're putting yourself on the back foot right from the get-go. So you are once again more inclined to redraw.
The decision seems like it's easier if you have an aggressive deck, the decision to make on whether you redraw or not. Whereas if you have like more mid-range or controller, you're like, okay, can I get to my mid and late game with this opening? You know, that's a harder decision for sure.
So, John, if your deck is a little more mid-rangey, a little more control, let's say you miscounted your deck, you're lacking some 2-drops. How does that decision affect your redraws? So if you know maybe your deck only has 4 2-drops and you don't see one, and obviously that's going to lead us into our player draw. But for right now, just omit that part, or you can talk about it. But how does that play a role in your mulligan decision?
If I mean, in that case, I'd probably have more interaction early, hopefully. So sometimes some solid interaction can kind of replace one of those 2-drops or 3-drops. So I mean, I'd look for a replacement level effect, I guess, in that case.
Okay. Yeah, and that's a great consideration, once again, whether you're beat down or not. One of the sample hands we're going to talk about here lately, or in a minute, actually has that effect as well, where you want to look for something. You want to look at your hand and plan out the next couple of turns and see if it coincides with a feasible game plan.
Right.
And if it doesn't, then you have some issues. Now, sometimes, obviously, the perfect thing is to go 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, but sometimes you can't. So like you mentioned, interaction is thing. Do you have a conflagrate that could take up your turn 2 or turn 3 play? Things like that can kind of take up the spot of a unit because you're still doing something during the development portion, and you can't count that. So that's a very good point. I like that as well. And that's, once again, understanding the game plan of your deck, much like Alex said. If you're simply just trying to get to the late game, now you're looking at a different style of deck, and your hand decisions can be a little different. So player draw. So let's go ahead and talk about, throw some theories out there as far as what you look at how big of a factor player draw is. Okay,
so obviously that's something completely out of your control, but it's something you should always consider in your mulligan decisions. If let's say you're running like an aggressive deck, so just generally more 2-drops. If I'm on the play and have some 2-drops and 2 power, I'm probably good to go with an aggressive deck. If it's not an aggressive deck, even if I have a 2-drop and 2 power, I'm giving more consideration to a mulligan there. Makes any sense. If I'm on the draw, I might be more willing to keep a 2-power hand with a 2-drop in a more mid-rangey deck. Like you know, getting that one extra draw before you really start sweating for not drawing power is something that can help you not just lose with your opening hand.
Yeah, and that's a good point, is how many looks you get before you need a specific card. That kind of helps as well. When you have scout, when you're on the draw, you're able, like, okay, I have 2 power, I'm on the draw, so I'll get to see 2 cards drawn, or actually 3 cards drawn plus a scout potentially before I need to get to that power. And so you have that option, that ability to kind of gauge how many, I call them looks. I don't know where I picked that up from, but you know, how many looks, how many cards you get to look at before you really need that card, whether it's a unit or a removal spell or a power. So play draw does, I feel like, come into play quite a bit. You know, when your first play is on turn 4, you're looking like, okay, on the draw, is that good enough? It's like my opponents could be able to do 3 different things before I get my first piece of interaction. The flip side of that is on the play. Now that conflict rate isn't looking that great because at best your 2 power conflict rate is going to kill their 2 drop. You know, versus on the draw, it might be a little bit better because now you're using your turn 2 play to kill their turn 3 play. So those are other things where it's not always just you're on the back foot if you're on the draw. Sometimes that extra card, especially if you're a more attrition-y deck, is going to make the difference. Another consideration is if you're a mill deck, you're trying to gum up the board and mill your opponent. You know, you getting that extra draw could affect that dynamic as well. Alex, you have anything to add as far as play draw goes?
I just if I'm on the play, I typically don't like 2 power hands. I'm usually redrawing. Like I want 3 or more because I'm not kind of counting on that look, as you called it. Like I'm gonna get a look at the extra power that I'll need. So I think I like being on 3 or, I mean, this is not like you can't use this rule, but this is just like tends to happen a lot when I'm on the play. I want 3 or more power unless I'm a super aggressive deck and have a lot of 2 drops or something like that.
And even then, though, it's kind of risky because you still want additional power to be able to use combat tricks and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah, no, for sure. It's like you're kind of like taking a gamble on your deck, which is something you can always do. You can like just roll with it, and if you just gotta keep the saltiness at a minimum if it doesn't work out for you, you know. But I think the amount of power you have in your deck kind of helps you determine the thing I've been trying to practice a lot, and you've helped me with this a lot, Jedi, is like putting 18 power in my deck. I don't remember the last deck I had that didn't have 18 power, even the aggressive decks.
I don't know if that's something more in this format. Like in prior formats, I had a lot of success with even 16 power decks, but I don't know if I've tried it even once in this format. I think it's mostly 18 and sometimes 17.
Well, I mean, you want to get to your Grodov's Favored, you want to get to your Draconis, you want to get to your Cinder Dragons. Like there's no aggressive scout deck where you're just playing 3 and 4 drops and you're scouting the rest of the way. So I think it is meta dependent, but I don't mind having extra power because to me, I'd rather flood and be able to play any gas that draws off the top of my deck than to be power stuck and just have all my good cards in my hand and not be able to do a single thing.
So like 18 power as opposed to 17. I'm sure Shiftstone would be able to do the math on what the percentage is if you draw one, but it's like it's more, whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is, but if you know you have 18 power in your deck, you can like kind of hedge on that you're going to get one, you know, but that's if you're on the draw, not so much the play. You got to be more careful if you're going first, you know.
Points.
Well, and then the consideration for that too is like we talked about earlier, is that you're not always going to hit your power on curve. So how bad do you want to hit your 5 on curve? How bad do you want to hit your 6 on curve? And sometimes having that additional power is what's going to be the difference between playing your 6 drop on turn 6 or 7 versus turn 8 or 9. But yeah, I think player draw is probably one of the last things you want to consider when looking at your opening hand and whether to redraw or not. But it is something that you definitely want to take in consideration in sync with your archetype, like what kind of a deck you drafted.
Yeah, what you just said, like I almost kind of use it as the tiebreaker sometimes, you know, like I like this, if I'm really on the fence, that's when I'm look down at my avatar and it says first or not, and I'm like, oh, I'm going first here, okay, mulligan, you know, like I use that kind of as a tiebreaker sometimes if I'm on the fence.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's definitely and it plays a big role for me. It really comes into play when it's talking about going to 6, because once again, you talked about that, getting to see that extra card. When I feel like I'm immediately going to get that card back at the beginning of my turn, I'm a little more likely to go down to 6.
Agreed.
Versus when I'm on the play, I'm like, man, I'm already going to be down a card this entire game. Like that seems so feel bad.
Like, I'm not sure how much I should let that dictate if I go down to 6 or not when I'm on the play, but I fully do let it dictate a little bit. You're like, oh, I don't want to lose one more card, you know?
Yeah, you feel like you're just clawing from on your back foot. Like if it's in a play scenario and you have to go down to 6 sometimes.
Yeah, you're really hoping that you get a couple of 2-for-1s during the draw out of the game to kind of balance that out, because obviously limited is all about 2-for-1s and getting that advantage on your opponent.
Those wins do feel great. I will say that
Sure.
when you're on the play in multi-6.
So let me go ahead and once again hit you up again, Alex, since you kind of like playing all the colors. Let's say you're running 4-color, okay? And you're running 2 solid colors with 2 splashes. How, trying to structure my question, but I guess I can kind of leave it open-ended. How important is it to see those splash colors in your opening hand?
So the splash colors, like things I would typically splash for is for like removal or finishers. So it depends on where I'm at. Like, do I need the splash for my 7-drop? Then I'm okay if I don't see it in my opening hand. Is the splash for like a conflagrate and a Streets of Flame and a char, something like that? Then I'm kind of looking for that with potentially redrawing to get that in my opening hand so that I can interact in the early game. So once again, it depends on the construction of your deck, whether you should mulligan or not. It's like really complex, discussion to have. You really need to understand your deck, I guess, to make the good decision regarding a redraw.
Hopefully you're just not trying to splash for some powerful 3 or 4 drop that you want on curve, right?
I mean, it could happen. Like I'd splash for Trickster, the 2/3 that's silenced for 4.
Definitely, yeah, exactly. But that's also a card that's going to be okay a little bit later.
Yeah, fair.
But
yeah, that's like a mid-game, late game card. Yeah.
I don't know. Like let's say you're splashing for like a Longhorn. I think that's just asking for trouble.
Yeah,
like, for instance. You definitely want, at least I personally go more the way Alex just mentioned, where like you're okay with some earlier interaction like conflagrates and things, but that's one that's even fine later in the game too, because of the potential 2-for-1 on 7 power. But like Streets of Flame, like you're still probably fine with not being able to cast that on curve. You'd like to be able to, obviously, especially with the scout on that, but it's not like, hopefully you've got plenty of other things that you can play on 2, 3, and 4 to help you not die in the early and mid game to get to those powerful things that you're splashing for.
Yeah,
that should be your units,
right?
Hopefully,
splashing like early curve units is always a little sketchy for me, but in some formats it's not that big, dealing with strangers and things. But in this format, it's definitely not easy to pull off.
Well, here, let me flip the script on you, John, or Alex. What happens when you have your splash and one of your primary colors, but not your second primary color in your opening hand? Do you ship it or do you keep that?
Asking me, I've been like inclined to keep it lately because I should have 10 or 11 sources of my primary color. So it depends. Like, is it full of 2 drops in my primary color? Then no, I would obviously have to ship. But is it my 4 and 5 drops? Then you can, bet on your deck that it's going to provide the way it should. Like it's going to give you a time sigil if that's what you need, and that's one of your primary colors.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I tend to have like faith in the deck construction.
Yeah. As long as I can play my maybe 2 and 3 drop and have like one other 3-drop or something that I need to draw the influence for, like I'm probably okay with that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So even if you're missing one of your colors, as long as you have some early plays, you're like, my deck will give me what I need later on. Fair enough. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it for our listeners. So one more flip the script. We've been talking a lot about being power stuck, but let's talk a little bit about looking at your opening hand. And now you're talking about 2 playables and 5 power. John.
So this has to be your opening hand, right? Because 5 you can't get on a mulligan. So it really depends on the quality of those other 2 cards, I guess. Like sometimes I'd be willing to keep that. Especially if I have like a solid 2 and 3 to go along with it. But yeah, that's definitely borderline too much power, especially with some, like an aggressive deck where let's say you've got the 5 power and you have like the 1 5 drop and like the 1 4 drop to go with it. Like, yeah, you'll be able to play that, but it's completely counter to your actual game plan. So I'm definitely gonna redraw in that situation. Yeah, 5 power in your opening hand it feels a bit much. Like, I think 3 and 4 is the real sweet spot. Like, even if it's 5 power and 2 5 drops, right? I mean, what are the chances you'll even make it?
Yeah, that hand just does nothing.
Yeah,
it just does nothing. Go ahead, Alex.
I was gonna say that's probably like a redraw 4 out of 5 times, unless like those 2 cards are a 2 drop and a 3 drop. That kind of gives you some board presence, and then you can be like, okay, I already have 5 of my power. Now let's draw some gas.
We're talking more like Longhorn quality 2 drop as opposed to just a 2/2, right? Especially like a Bannerman or something. That's not going to get you there.
Or the Kieran or the the Whelp, something like that.
Exactly.
Here's my thing, guys. When you have 5 power in hand, every sigil you draw after that just is like a nail in the coffin to me. It's so like nails in the chalkboard. I can't stand it, because then you're just like, yep, guess I'm just gonna flood out and you're gonna crush me. Like, I can't. Like, for me personally, if I have 5 power now, if I'm mulling down the 6, right? If this is just redraw, I'm redrawing. I'm sending it back immediately, because it's just every power off your deck, the top of your deck, is just so bad. You're just like, oh god. And so, and if your opponent has like 1 combat trick to blow out your 2 or 2 drop or 3 drop, you're just like, I'm stuck. What's going on here? So for me, that's a redraw. Now, if my deck is top heavy and I'm really like, look, I really need to get the 5 power for my or 4 power for my deck that's where my sweet spot is, maybe. But if I'm on the, especially if I'm on the draw, I'm like, I don't know. Like,
yeah. I mean, another consideration to maybe keep is like you have a 4 or God forbid 5 color deck, and you're like, I have access to all my colors in these 5 powers. Like, maybe you keep that, because you're like, anything I draw that's a spell or a unit's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, that's a ship almost every time, just because of the automatic cap out at 4 on your redraw, which is 5, So, yeah, you could very aggressively redraw with 5 for sure.
Yeah, I think another thing too, another very important thing that I want to touch on is that you have to look at each hand independently and not have the feel bads, because there's going to be, it's happened to all of us, where you have a 7, you have an opening hand, and you're like, no, I think we can do better. I don't like this. This has a few too many holes. And you redraw, and your redraw is horrible.
This is even worse somehow.
Yeah, and you're like, well, gotta go to 6. But like, you just feel bad. You're like, well, I don't want to go to 6 because it could get worse. But you have to have that discipline of being like, okay, we redrew, we rolled the dice. This one happens to be bad, but once again, is this better than 6? And if you legitimately ask yourself, and going through the steps that we just talked about, looking at all these factors, you realize that, you know what, it's really not that good of a hand. Then, a 6 that might win you the game is better than a 7 that will lose you the game.
True.
Yeah, don't tilt because your second hand was worse than your first.
Right.
And use that to not redraw, into a better 6, because you're like, oh no, my first hand was better. I can't possibly redraw now because it'll be worse again or whatever,
So one other thing, all right, so we talked about flooding, we talked about influence, we've talked about what our deck's trying to do. You lightly talked on interaction, which we'll talk about in some of our sample hands. One last thing I wanted to talk about as well is sweepers. Sweepers are very powerful and limited, and it gives you the ability to, it kind of gives you that win from behind or that underdog thing. If you have a hailstorm in your deck, or if you have for less a frost wave, or obviously Shenra Speaks, if we're talking about this format. How does that affect your mulligan decisions, Alex?
That might be a hand where you keep your 5 power, right? If you have the 5 to cast Shenra Speaks, and you just, well, let's let the opponent play everything out, and then I'm going to Shenra on 5 or whatever. Yeah, no, that fully affects if you have it in your opening hand, you can kind of dictate the game, really dictate the way the game goes.
I sure
So
wouldn't keep like a 5 power hand with a Shinra Speaks in my deck somewhere.
Yeah.
no, if it's in your
It's in
hand
your
is what I
hand.
meant.
I think that's a
Yeah.
reasonable thing to keep, probably.
Well, I think if you have a sweeper in your deck, I think it also gives you the ability to be a little more lax on your opening hands. So, like they don't necessarily have to be your perfect hand, because as long as you're able to do something, I feel like you have that fail safe of like, well, I have the sweeper that I could potentially draw to get me out of this situation. You know what I mean? For example, sometimes when you look at a hand, you're like, this hand, if my opponent has aggressive star, I just get ran over. If you know you have a sweeper in your deck, there's a chance that it might not be, or even something like a Cast in the Shadow, where you can get a 2-for-1, a clean 2-for-1. Having access to things like that give you a little bit of leeway. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, where you're not like, well, because you have an answer is what I'm trying to get at. Where if you might not have the best start, you still have a way to kind of get you back into the game. A similar, I'm trying to think now if there's a unit.
Like life steal is kind of the. You have a big life steal unit that you can draw later.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say the astrologer,
Mm-hmm.
the astrologer. That it's a 6-drop, but when it comes in, it can pump one of your guys with life steal, things like that.
It's 5, 4/4 flyer for 5, I think.
It could be. It's a rare.
Sounds right.
Yep. Yeah, I had it in the farming eternal Stone Scar deck. That was the handpick draft. I remember that guy. Yeah, a guy like that's a good example that can get you back in a game.
Sweet. All right. So, are there any other overall like key points that you guys would like to touch on before we go into our sample hands?
I don't think so. I think we've talked about everything I had in mind.
Okay, Alex.
Yeah, no, I think it was a good overall discussion. I guess, I mean, don't be afraid of redrawing. The system's very generous to redrawing.
Okay.
Yep, that's about it.
Okay, so just a real quick recap for our listeners. First, you want to look at your power. Look at the amount of power you have in your hand. Take in consideration things like cargo and seek power. Then look at the influence that you have. Are you able to play what's in your hand? If you are able to do it, then that's something obviously more keepable. Think of it as well as depleted power, even though we've all kind of taken the boat that it's not that important to play everything on curve if you're still able to deploy everything in your hand. Curve considerations. Obviously, once again, you're perfect. You would like to go 2, 3, 4, 5, but if that's not the case, that's what you're looking for. How many 5-drops you have in your hand, how many 2-drops, 3s, etc., etc. And then if you're on the play or draw is something that you want to finally kind of use it as the tiebreaker. And then lastly, what is your deck's game plan? If you are trying to survive in the late game, does your hand facilitate that game plan or vice versa? Are you the aggressor? Do you want to get on the board early? Do you want to be able to remove their early blockers and get in for additional damage to put your opponent on the back foot? Using these 5 points and as well as treating each draw uniquely will help you increase your win percentage. I promise you. I've seen it, and both John and Alex did say it as well. Mulliganing, redrawing allows you to see a lot more hands that give you the ability to see a lot more winning hands, especially having the fact that you are guaranteed 2 to 4 power on the second redraw and the third, and keeping a 7 on that first redraw is huge. So don't be afraid. If anything, do it more against the computer. If you're in Forge, if you're in Gauntlet, if you're in the casual format, or maybe you're Masters, you don't care about your rank, just try to redraw more and see what you're going to see. And you'll be surprised at how many more hands you get that are serviceable. But, yep.
In the game, there's also that, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows, but just in case you didn't, you can do that opening hand and the redraw option on your deck builder. And you can kind of get a look at if your deck's going to be friendly to you or not.
Yeah,
when I first started drafting in this game, I used that a ton.
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, I like that. Very good.
Kind of got away from that, but yeah, that was very helpful when I was pretty new.
I still do it if it's like I'm all this power base seems suspect, but let me prove it to myself here by looking at some hands, you know.
Sweet. All right then. So now I've screenshotted a couple of opening hands that I thought had a little bit of discussion point. So we're gonna go ahead and bring them up. Of course, once again, you guys can tune into the YouTube version of this podcast and see these on your screen. So opening hand 1 here, we have an Elysian insignia. So it is time primal influence. It comes in depleted because this is a 3-color deck. I'll go ahead and spoil it down. And then we have a fire sigil. We have the Linray Evangel, which is the primal evangel. We have Parry. We have a Seek Power. We have Living Example, which is double time, 2-drop. And then we have War Painter, which is the fire 3-drop. Okay. So, John, since you see it real nice, I'll give Alex a minute to look at it. What do you think about this hand?
I'm liking the look of this opening hand, even though we do get a free 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're on the play as well.
Yeah, we're on the play. So like, I'm totally down to keep this hand. We have 2 good 2-drops and a 3-drop, and like that in this case, the Seek Power essentially counts as our 3rd power in this hand. We have an interaction. Like Living Example is particularly great. The earlier you can get it out.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue is that with the current setup, we're gonna have to take. We won't be able to get our Living Example out on turn 2. But that's a small price to pay here.
Okay. So are you looking, so my question to you is, do you drop the Linray? So how would you play this hand out? So you would keep this hand, right?
I think I'd keep it, yeah.
Yeah, and then just like you said, play the Living Example off color or off curve.
Yeah, I think it'd be probably good enough on turn 3 here.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd probably go like I don't know if it's 3 or 4 color deck or anything like that, but just looking at the opening hand, like
Yeah.
I'd probably just go for the banner on 1, and then
Seek power
on 2.
Seek power on 2 when you have more information.
I mean, unless you draw a time sigil, then that lets you drop your living
Exactly.
example.
Like that's the one upside about doing it that way. I think.
And that's exactly what I was going to add on as well. So good job, Alex. It's just essentially there. Go ahead and play your depleted power on 1. So if you have to do something on 2, you have undepleted power, and you also may draw a time source.
Right.
So
you could go fire Seek here on turn 1, but then then there's no chance to play either of your 2 drops.
Yep.
Well, then you're just open to the. Well, you could play the Linray if you seek for a.
Oh yeah, that's true
primal.
Because
it'll give you the second primal. Yeah, exactly. So if you drop the Elysian on 1, you can essentially do Fire Sigil and then drop the Linray on 2 based on what you see your opponent doing. So yeah, this hand is very serviceable. John, Alex, do you have anything to add?
I was going to say this is a good example of like your opening hand giving you the power and factions that you need, just 1 turn off curve, but it's okay. It's fully serviceable, like you said. I would snap keep this hand.
It doesn't look like we're in some kind of extremely low to the ground aggro deck here, so I think it's okay to be playing 1 turn off curve for some. Especially Living Example coming out that early is still going to be a very powerful thing. Yeah,
the key points to this hand is just the fact that we're counting Seek Power as our 3rd power, which means we have 3 power, and we have actually through the Seek Power the influence to play everything in our hand. So yeah, this is a very keepable hand, even on the play, or even more so on the play, I would think, because you have the time of not being worried about getting steamrolled by your opponent. Okay, this one is going to be an interesting talking point. So I'm going to bring this up to, I'm going to start this off with you, Alex. So this hand, we are on the play yet again. This is Time Sigil, Ixtin token. So it's Fire Justice Primal, Primal Sigil, Wisdom of the Elders, which is the double primal 3-cost draw 2 card spell, Draw Strength, and then Crown Watch Longsword, which is the 2/2 Justice Weapon for 2. We're on the play. What do you think about this hand?
I mean, my first reaction is to redraw, I guess, to hopefully draw some like action being units. A part of me is like saying keep it. Like, I guess it depends on what your unit count is. Like,
for all intents and purposes, let's just go ahead and say every deck that we're going to see here for these hands are going to be your standard 18 units, 9 spells, etc., etc.
So, I mean, you're not doing anything until turn 3, and that's without even getting your justice. If you want to use your token for a primal. So yeah, no, like this, you have some great cards in your hand, but this is like this is a redraw.
This could just be a do nothing and lose the game kind of opening hand. So
right,
we haven't done one mulligan yet, so
we're
still gonna get a 7 card to look at.
Yeah. So the consideration in this hand is just the fact that we're on the play. So our opponent would only be able to deploy a 2-drop by the time we would essentially turn 3 wisdom to see 2 more cards, right? The downside, like Alex mentioned, is the fact that we would, to do that, guaranteed do that, we would have to sacrifice the token for primal instead of justice. So then that gives us potentially 3 dead cards in our hand, though for this deck, obviously seeing that sway means that justice is our secondary color or one of our primary colors. So once again, we go back to that earlier thing that Alex had mentioned where you just have faith in your deck to draw you that. But I do agree. I think this hand is just a little too slow because of the fact that we don't have a unit. So even if we are seeing an extra card or 2 off of wisdom, our opponent is still going to be able to play potentially a 2 and 3 drop before we're able to do something. 2 draw strengths are quite powerful. It's an easy way to come back. But I would have liked to see if that Crown Watch Longsword was a unit, I would think differently.
Definitely.
But yes. So one other thing I want to throw out to you guys just to be a little thorough. And John, you could start off us on this one. Would you keep this if it was a redraw to 6? If it was this or 6?
I think I would still go to 6 here, probably, honestly. This hand kind of scares me that I'll just never do anything this game.
Okay.
I think I'd rather just have a 6 where I don't, where I at least have a chance to have something in my opening hand that does something. Like right now, none of these cards do anything. You have to have a unit.
Alex, you?
Like you said, if maybe the Crown Watch Longsword or one of the draw strengths or even the Wisdom of the Elders was a unit that you'd be able to play with one of your combos that you have, then maybe. But with nothing to put on the board, you're just like, you're asking for a beating really with this hand, I think.
Yeah. So you go to 6?
If it's like this, I think I do go to 6.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you guys as well. I'm a conservative drafter. You guys know this, so I like to see I don't want to run it to chance.
Yeah, I'm less conservative, I think, and I mean, I'm definitely not liking this opener at all.
All right, sweet.
Too much risk there.
Moving on, our third hand here, we are on the draw, and this hand, this is interesting. So we're a straight Rakano deck. I do remember this deck. This is 2/6, so this is our second redraw already. We're triple Justice Sigil, Skyfire Dragon,
Hellkite maybe.
Hellkite is still a Skyfire. There you go, Hellkite. Yeah, the 7/4 7-drop for Fire. Acclaimed Artisan, the Justice Fire 2-drop, Granite Acolyte, the Fire 3-drop, and then Inflict Conscience, which is the 1 power Justice Curse. Kill unit when it deals damage. So, John, I think you started us off on the last one. So, Alex, do you want to? What's your 2 cents on this one?
I'm going down to 6 here. You potentially are doing nothing, right? I mean, you have one quasi removal spell in the Inflict Conscious, but if you don't draw a fire, you're dead in the water.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
I'm with Alex on this as well. This one I'm totally willing to go down to 6 for this. Like those the 2 and 3 drop here like really want you to curve out, and my luck would be 2 more Justice Sigils, and then I'm also not even any closer to playing my 7 drop in that case. This is a little too risky for my taste. I would be looking to go to 6 here.
Yeah, and the argument is the fact that you're on the draw, you're going down to 6, so you have essentially you have 2 looks, so to speak, before you need to hit that fire. But yeah, I'm with you guys as well. I've been jammed up with mono or 1 power, 1 influence in my hand, and never saw the second one or saw my splash. Like my luck would be I would see the 1 power sigil from my splash color or something.
It happens.
So yeah, This is a redraw, even going down to 6. Essentially, if you use magic terminology or theory crafting, essentially you're already at 6 because having a 7 drop in your opening hand is the same as going down a card. Fair enough. That's something else you guys can use as well. It's a theory that you use in Magic. One of the earlier ways to kind of convince yourself that it's okay to mulligan. You're so far away from a 7 drop on your opening hand. You're literally 8, 9 turns away from that it is essentially the same as not having that card in your hand. So when you're looking at a hand like this, you can already tell yourself you're already at 6.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. All right, this next hand, this is another interesting one. So, John, actually, if you want to describe this one.
Sure. Looks like we are on the draw. We've got 7 cards here, and so this is our opening hand. We've got a Fire Sigil, Justice Sigil, Crownwatch Longsword, a Slayer's Edge, Relic Weapon, Oni Forge Master, Acclaimed Artisan, and Sky Crew. This one, I'm actually considering holding on to this, especially if this is like a low to the ground Rakano deck that it kind of looks like it is. It might be a more mid-rangey one, but we've got like a great turn 2 play. We've got reasonable follow-up for like 3 and 4. I'm definitely considering keeping this. I don't know like if it's a snap keep or anything like that, but definitely do worse.
Okay.
What do you guys think?
Okay. Alex, where are you at before I put my 2 cents?
Yeah, no, I'm on a keep. Like worst case scenario is if you don't draw any power for a couple turns, you still have like 3 things that you can do that are like significant board presence things.
Mm-hmm.
Like putting your weapon on the Forge Master, that makes it a 4/4. Then you get the weapon out of that. It's boosted with the Acclaimed Artisan. So you're doing stuff with this hand, even if you don't draw any power for a couple turns.
Yeah,
so
you're
like
just building your own 4 drops.
Yeah.
While stuck at 2 power, waiting for that power draw, like worst case scenario.
It's not the greatest of hands, but it definitely is serviceable.
Yeah, and you guys pretty much covered everything. This hand is keepable to me. I think it's not bad enough to make me want to redraw, and it's exactly what you guys said. You have enough things that you can do even if you don't see power, both offensively and defensively.
Mm-hmm.
If your opponent's not doing anything, you drop the Forge Master and you drop the Acclaimed Artisan, you get in there for 3, and then you have the weapon for follow-up. If you're on the back foot, you can easily play the Forge Master and then put the longsword on it and then just defend with the 4/4. And then you also have the Slayer's Edge. You have guaranteed removal in your hand should you be able to draw, survive and then draw power to kind of get you back into it. So I think this hand is serviceable. You have your 2, you have your 2 colors, so influence is going to be necessarily an issue based on, obviously you have to consider how much double influence you have. But right now, everything in our hand is playable as long as we get drawing. So I think I agree with you guys, especially on the draw where you get to see an extra card. I think this is plenty serviceable, and I would keep this hand as well. But I would not fault anyone for shipping it. But I mean, if you're an aggressive deck or not, like I said, this has the tools to get you into the late game. So I like it.
Cool.
All right. Next one, opening hand 5. Alex, do you want to go over this one?
Is this
the Xenon hand?
Opponent
against
Joe
Joe Bags?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Well, I guess that's your first. If you can redraw your opponent, that would be the first thing I would try to do here.
But you and John, all the jokes.
So this hand is
we'll break it down first.
Let me break it down. We have 2 time sigils, a shadow sigil, a Stone Scar Outfitter, the 2/3 buffs your team, a Grodov's Favored, an Edict of Makar, is that Makar? And then Edict of Grodov. So
we're on the draw, and this is our opening hand.
Is this the first one? If we go down to 6 after this?
No, this is the first one. This is a redraw.
First hand.
I mean, you have a couple of maybe removal spells in your hand. You're not really sure how those are going to work out yet. So this deck really has no early stuff going on. I would probably ship this hand.
Okay.
Your sigils look very pretty, by the way.
Thank you. I collect foil lands in MTG, and I collect foil sigils because they go in every deck. Like you could,
Yeah, no,
if there's anything,
those are
if there's ever a good investment, I feel like sigils and power is always a good one because
Looking
you
at
could,
them all the time.
yeah, exactly. All right, John, what's your take on this?
Like, I would definitely give some consideration to keeping this. Like, you've got the requisite power, but that's it here. Like, Edict of Grodov is guaranteed to be at least decent at keeping you alive for an extra turn or whatever, or not just getting smashed right away.
Mm-hmm.
But the Edict of Makar may do basically nothing here. And then your 4-drop doesn't actually do unit stuff for a few turns if you have to shift it out. And its other ability is buffing your team that doesn't exist right now. So I don't know. Like I could definitely see an argument for keeping this, but since it's our first opening hand, like I'm probably gonna go for a mulligan.
Yeah, and I like how neither of you brought up Grodov's favorite. I think that's 100% correct. Grodov's favorite is an amazing card, but it does nothing in your opening hand.
it's so far away.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the consideration for this is obviously the edicts potentially being some early interaction. That is the trade-off you have with the edicts, is that at least the Grodov, the time one, is a bounce spell at the very least, so it's guaranteed to do something.
Right.
And it is a fast spell, so you even on the play or on the draw, you can play your third power, which we have in hand, and then bounce their 4-drop to essentially set them back and give you a window. The Edict of Makar, the Shadow one, even once again 50-50 chance.
Could
Or actually,
get
what is it?
lucky
Is it like 40% chance of it being a removal spell, something like that? So the thing here, you obviously don't have the units to play, so your consideration would be how good is your interaction. And I think if maybe if you had Edict of Grodov and then maybe the Edict of Makar was a char, then 2 pieces of guaranteed removal, then yeah, I think so. But
I agree.
And obviously, like you guys said, because our next one is a free redraw, I think it's 100% mulligan as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Your first unit is a shifted on 4, right?
That
Correct.
buffs your team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That buffs your non-existent team.
So, yeah.
Yeah, the more we went over this hand, I was like, yeah, this is it's a clear ship, right? I mean, at first you think about it, but yeah, no, this is not a serviceable hand.
Maybe on the play, I think I would consider it only because of the fact that then our Edict of Grodov is a little more effective at preventing the board. You know, you're resetting their turn 3, and if their turn 3 isn't that important, you could save it for the turn 4. But I think on the draw, it's just too slow. Okay. This next hand, we are on the play, and this is our opening hand. We have double Shadow Sigil, 1-time Sigil. We have the Umbran Deadwatcher. The 1/1 that gets a +1/+1 for every unit in your void, and it's a 3-drop. We have Direfang Spider, 1/1 deadly for 1. We have Metal. The 1 fast spell, make a unit invulnerable to damage this turn. And then Tremor Shocker, the 6/6 for 6 double time that you can shift for 4. So this hand is very interesting. I'm not going to give an opinion on it. I'm just going to say the lines that you could see, and then I'll let you take this one first, Alex. So right off the bat, you can drop the spider on 1. You have the metal to back it up should you want to block with the spider, make it invulnerable to damage, and then that way you can kind of kill 2 things. The Deathwatcher is a 3-drop that you can play, but it's not very impressive because a 1/1 for 3 is not exciting. Of course, there's a world where you Direfang 1 and then it dies and then it comes out as a 2/2. That's not very exciting. And then obviously you are 1 power, 1-time sigil away from being able to shift the Tremor Shocker on 4. But you do not currently have that in your hand. So there's a couple of things that make this hand a worthy discussion versus like maybe an auto keep or auto ship. Okay, Alex, where are you at on this one?
I kind of like this hand because you can use the metal to basically use the Direfang to get rid of 2 units. While you're doing that, you're not really worried about playing the Umbran, the Radiant, yet anyways. And then it gives you time to draw to play your shifted Tremor Shocker. It's not a great hand, but you could do stuff. So I would consider keeping this hand actually.
And how much of effect does being on the play with this hand influence your decision?
On the play, you're doing stuff. You're going first, but you have the spider you can play out. You can kind of like hold the board down while you're hopefully drawing your power.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have you have a turn 1 play that's very defensive, and then on turn 2, you have the shields up where you can use it twice basically.
Yeah.
And then if you're gonna use it twice, then you could play the Umbran. It'll be a 2/2 because you'll have the spider in the void. So yeah, no, this hand it can get you to the late game where you're dropping a Tremor Shocker.
Yeah, I think being on play means you're not necessarily afraid of getting run over by your opponent, and then obviously there's a world as well that if your opponent doesn't do anything, you just don't play the Umbran and you just keep the spider up with metal.
Yeah,
John, where are you at on this hand?
Yeah, I think I'm with Alex. It's a very medium hand, and there's a chance that you might not be able to play this Tremor Shocker for quite some time, but I think there's
Pun
enough
intended. Boom, boom.
I think there's enough going on here, where I'd be more willing to keep it than take a risky click and go for the mulligan here.
Yeah, it's one of those hands that's not pretty, but it's serviceable enough where it's worth keeping and seeing, because obviously you draw a Time Sigil off your deck and this hand's gas.
You're just good to go.
totally.
So,
yeah, good to go.
And if you don't draw a Time Sigil, maybe you draw a playable 2 or 3 drop.
Yeah, very true. Yeah,
we already got the 3 power.
Yeah, Shadow has wolves galore, so right. Yeah, I agree.
Down to keep this.
Excellent, guys. You guys are doing fantastic. That's why I got you guys on the show. All right, our last hand for the day is this is interesting.
Ooh, what a pretty hand. I like it.
Yeah. All right, so this one we are on the play.
Oh no, never mind.
We are on the play, and this is Time Sigil, Primal Sigil, then Intrepid Longhorn, the Combre 2-drop, Tremor Shocker, like we just talked about, Kodosh Evangel, which is the green Evangel for double justice, gives you a justice, and Grodoff Evangel, double time, gives you a time. So, John, start us off on this hand.
Yeah, this is one where at first glance you might just go like, what? No way. But I don't know, like the Kodosh Evangel makes this very keepable in my opinion. Playing that Longhorn on 2 and on the play is a great spot to be in a lot of times. And if you get that out on time like that, you might really be able to leverage that extra sigil that the mastery can get you. And you've got the Grodoff Evangel that you can also play as a follow-up play. Any power, and you'll be able to shift out the Tremor Shocker. You may not be able to play your Kodosh Evangel for some time, but I don't think that's a deal breaker or anything. I think I'm looking to keep this maybe.
Okay. I actually, for me, it's not a maybe. I think you 100% keep this. Not the fact that you have 2 replacement 2-drops that could take the place of your Kodosh Evangel makes it completely serviceable. You have all your colors. You can do stuff.
I'm only saying maybe until one of you guys agrees with me.
Oh, fair. Gotcha. Being the insurance policy, the disclaimer.
I'm going first. Maybe? Yeah. No, I like this hand.
Alex, where are you at?
Yeah, no, at first I thought that the Primal was a Justice Sigil. I'm like, yeah, that's an automatic key. But when I saw it was Primal, I'm like, oh, maybe not. But the Kodosh Evangel, if you can't drop it till later in the game, that's one of the ones that kind of keeps its value because it's still, you're going to gain 2 life of it, so it's like, it doesn't really hurt you having to play that one late as opposed to the charge one, So yeah, no, this hand fully works. Dropping the Intrepid Longhorn on 2 to hopefully hitting your second, justice off of that mastery, getting your Tremor Shocker out on turn 4. Yeah, no, this hand looks great actually.
Sweet. Awesome. Nice. Yeah, wanted to give our listeners like something to be positive about, right? Not every hand is horrible and send it. So, but yeah, and then obviously the thing that even if you can't play your Kodosh Evangel, you have the influence and lets you play some other powerful things. So why not? Awesome. Sweet, guys. Well, that's it. I don't want to beat you guys to death with opening hands and stuff because, like we talked about, all of them are very unique and have their own flavors, so to speak. So that's going to do it for our main topic. Once again, guys, that is it better than 6? So trying to figure out whether to keep your opening hand, to redraw, or of course to desperate redraw going down to 6. It gives you the ability to decide on whether you win or lose the game before you even take your first turn. Granted, there are plenty of times your opponent's still going to curve out on you with nuts, but giving yourself the best opening hand possible, even if it is going down to 6, can it definitely increase your win percentage. Do you guys have any closing statements on drawing or redrawing?
No, I'm glad we were all in agreement on those. That's interesting. I don't think they were all just cut and dry, you know.
Yeah, I think if I'd really paid attention, I guess I could have done that too. Just built the deck and keep redrawing till I got something that was kind of like debatable. All right, future episodes we'll do that. Let me know in the comments below if you guys would like to have an episode that is just strictly draw and redraw. And we'll do a community vote. Oh yeah, we could do that. Put it up in the Discord. See how many people keep. How many keep. Ooh, that might be a project I might delegate to one of you guys. Alex, you have anything to add? Any closing statements on drawing or redrawing?
No, I think we covered it pretty good, I think.
Sweet. All right, awesome. Which leads us to our what's the play? And there it is. Okay, I did save it. Awesome. All right, guys. So what's the play? This is where I describe a specific scenario in a game, and we kind of talk about what kind of lines and which ones we would take, etc., etc. So let's go ahead and dive right into this one. This is interesting because this is not a do or die play. This is actually you want to try to win the game play. And I think there's multiple lines of play here, and this is why I like to bring it up. So first off, I know I should have just not queued in the collector. I get it. Battling collector.
He's
played
quite
him
good.
so many times recently too.
Prolific drafter.
Shout out to Collector, fantastic player. Don't know if he listens to the podcast, they listen to the podcast or not, but they're good people. I know I caught them in the stream the other day, so that's awesome. But here we go. Collector at 21 life. We are at 25 life. Collector at 1 of 3 power. At time, justice, primal. We are at 3 of 3 with Xenon, so time and shadow. On the board, there's an Intrepid Longhorn on Collector's side of the board. On our side of the board, we have an emerged 2/2 Aroctodon, a 2/2 Quick Draw Evangel, and a 2/2 Charge Evangel. Collector has 6 cards in hand. We have 4 cards in hand in the form of Grodov's Favored, the Greatsword. Shoot, I forgot the name of it now. The 1/1 for 4 sword.
Sword of Judgment.
Thank you. Shadow Sigil, which we can play, and another
Card Guru, folks. Card Guru.
It's judging you right now.
Yeah, I believe it. And another 2/2 Aroctodon that we could shift 1 for Scout or play at 2 and Scout. So, Alex, what would you do here?
I mean, so there's a couple things you could do. It looks like Collector just played the 3/3. It doesn't have any like mastery advancement on it. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he went down 2 power somehow, and I don't see a void, so I think that's exactly what happened.
Yep.
So like aggro play would be to put the sword, play your power, put the sword on the 2/2, make it a 3/3 first striker or whatever.
Quick draw? So you want to slap it on the Makar Evangel there?
That's a possible play, and then swing in for 5. You're probably going to deal 5 damage this turn, put them at 16. You're still at 20. Or you could play your power, play your 2-drop, not shifted, Scout to try to, make sure you're getting power on the top of your deck, to hopefully play out your Grodov's Favored. So there's like, I guess 2 different lines here. If he has a pause here, maybe I wouldn't attack because, although I don't know when you would see if he has a pause.
There's no way to check for one here.
If he has a draw strength in his hand, that can kind of blow you out. So I don't know. My gut would be to play defensively here. Just drop the power, put out the 2/2 Dino, Scout. Hopefully something, either something I could cast or a power to the top of my deck.
Mm-hmm.
Probably play conservatively here, especially against this opponent. I think that's what I would do.
Okay. Would you shift the Arachnodon, or would you just play it for full value?
I think I would just play it, not shift it, and then offer a double block with my with my both 2/2s.
Mhm.
Not not the shadow guy, because he has, he can get through later potentially, but any of the other 2/2s, present a gang block on it basically,
Mhm.
so that hopefully he doesn't swing, and then if then he doesn't have a trick.
Okay. Yeah. John, where are you at on this one?
That's a reasonable line. I'm more I don't know, like something about the way that they top deck that Longhorn, and that's their only unit so far. I don't know. And then just our board presence here, I'm strongly considering just putting this sword on the quick draw unit and getting in for 5 here. And then trying to get the mastery off on the sword fast as possible. I don't know what else is in the deck, like if there's some, good flyers coming or anything like that you might want to put the sword on. But I'm kind of feeling the aggressive line personally.
Well, the interesting thing about Longhorn is that it pretty much has reckless, right? Like Longhorns are just always swinging because you want to get that mastery. So and you said swing with 5. Would there have been a consideration to play the quick draw or sword on the quick draw, swing for 3, and then leave back two blockers to force them to use the combat trick on the Longhorn?
Yeah, there's a consideration for that,
but you just wouldn't.
I just like our life total versus theirs,
Mhm.
and I think just chipping away as fast as possible is looking pretty attractive to me right here.
Mm-hmm. So I did consider the line that Alex said as far as playing a little conservative. The issue I had is that I felt like it was slightly power inefficient, and it gives the opponent the chance to further develop their board next turn. I think I'm with Alex. I don't think I would have shifted. I would play it just to offer another block, and I would actually probably triple block. That way we could push through like a draw strength or a choice, Amory's choice, because it would 3-for-1 us, but at least, or actually it would be a 3-for-2, and at least we get their unit off the board versus you double block, they have the trick, and then they 2-for-1 you.
I'm trying to give my analysis without knowing. I know what happened and everything in this game, right? So this is looking like a pretty attractive, aggressive play to me. But
yeah, I'm with you. I ended up doing exactly that, though. I think the thing is that I've gone down on sword from when I first started because I thought it was but sword has the potential. The trick is you really want to trigger the sword as soon as possible. Anytime that you have to slowly work your way to the mastery is giving your opponent too much time.
Agreed.
So, but the fact here that putting the sword on a quick draw unit, getting in for 3 is going to take it halfway through its mastery. We can potentially swing again next turn based on how they want to do it. I think that the high risk, high reward is there. We do have a follow-up play in the Arachnodon should we not draw it. Like, we're not really doing anything the next turn anyways.
Right.
So the thing is for me is I have to evaluate what's going to be better or worse next turn, right? The Arachnodon is going to be exactly the same, personally, in my opinion, this turn and the next turn. Exactly the same. It does nothing, right? Versus the sword is going to be dramatically less effective next turn when they could potentially have 2 blockers on the board or have power open for a trick. And so for me, I went with the line that you agreed on, or that you had mentioned, John, where I went ahead and just slapped the sword on the quick draw and got in there because should that sword trigger, now all of a sudden we have a 7/7 quick draw, which is extremely difficult to block.
I think the mastery procs on 6.
5.
It's 5, right? Yeah. So yeah, just 2 swings and you're gonna have a huge quick draw. Like that's a massive upside.
And not only that, but plus, should we not draw anything, we can play the Arachnodon post combat, so Collector has to respect us having a trick. I mean, they don't have to, but
you're talking about the next swing.
Yeah, exactly. So here, where the only thing we're playing around is draw strength, it's better to just get in now. And hey, if they have the draw strength, then kudos to them. But we still got the draw strength out on a 2-drop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sword with questionable use at multiple points in the game.
Yeah. So I think here I would have gone for the more aggressive play, and I did, just because of that. Essentially, we're not doing anything next turn unless we draw something. So that was my tipping point, was based on what they have. It was high risk, high reward, right? If we got a 7/7 quick draw, chances are we were going to have a good chance of getting there. So that ended up being the line I took. But once again, I think Alex's line is perfectly fine as well. Scouting, see what you're going to get next turn, and then basing your judgment on that. You're still going to have 8 power on the board. So yeah, sweet. So I think that was fun. That was actually 2 lines of play that I like that.
Yeah.
And then there's consideration as well, swinging with everything or just swinging with the 2/2, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
but
like swinging, playing the sword on the shadow unit that I keep calling it, and then attacking with just that, and then leaving up the double block that you had mentioned.
Yeah, and
that's like a cross in between aggressive and defensive.
I actually think that is what I did. I think
so too.
I think so, because I wanted to bait the trick out of their hand as soon as possible, and because in my mind the 2 damage is fine, but getting the trick out of their hand on just 2 random 2 drops means that our 7/7 has a better chance of getting through in future turns.
Indeed.
So I think that's exactly what I did. Where John would have went full aggressive, swung for 5. You would have gone full defensive and just played a 2/2 and maybe got in for 2. I would have. I pretty much hedged my bets in between and left up some double blocks, but also got in there for damage and ended up triggering.
All the 3 different plays, we would have done all 3.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I'm not necessarily sure how the subsequent turns played out, because I did get the mastery on it and it was a 7/7 quick draw. I just don't remember what the follow up was. But
yeah, I don't either. But like, I know we got them down to a pretty low life total pretty quickly, and then we sniffed out a Omri's choice, and we're no longer attacking with that 7/7 quick draw, so it quickly lost its appeal there. But
so full disclosure, the reason why it lost is because the collector effectively was signaling or telegraphing that they had a choice. We played around it, but we got stuck on power.
Right.
We actually drew some more 6 drops, and I think we never got. We never drew our 5th power.
That's right. Yeah,
because we had a Twin Brood.
Yeah, like it would have been pretty much fine if we had some power drops there, because like the quick draw unit would have already done its job, gotten in 6 or however much damage before like massive risk. Like at that point you were just using it defensively because you weren't.
And then they're still using an Amri's choice on a 2 drop.
Right. I mean, and you losing the sword, but the sword did an additional however many points of damage already, and it worked defensively too. I mean, it kept them from attacking us for a number of turns, but
So what's the way better ending before it went to the end of the game?
Oh, we lost. Collector played it extremely well. They left up Amri's choice. At least they left up the suspected Amri's choice the entire game. Literally,
we never even saw it.
Yeah,
but
and then later on, he flash banged us or flash grenade. He flash grenaded us, and I totally tilted because I thought that's what he left up the whole time. So I was kicking myself.
Good Guy Collector came into chat though and said, he had the choice.
Yeah.
Ever since that, like next turn, after the mastery went off, he like drew a choice at that point. I guess.
So we were correct to play around it, and we never hit our 5th power. If we hit our 5th power, what we would have done, because we did draw Twin Brood, it was pretty easy. We would have easily continued to swing in with the 7/7. And then they would have Amri choiced it, and then we would have immediately that same turn deployed Twin Brood, then Twin Brood, and then Grodaw's Favor. Just really taxed them, because obviously the problem was that because we had them on Amri's choice and that was our biggest threat, we didn't attack. But we did stall. Like, it was correct. We were in a stalemate where
they were attacking.
They couldn't attack or deploy units because they had to keep up the 2 power, but we couldn't. But we couldn't deploy our threats because we didn't have that 5th power. Versus if we had the 5th power, then there would have been it would have been better either way if we just continued to develop our board and force them to either deploy threats or leave up the Amri's choice, or just keep attacking and keep deploying threats. But obviously they played it well. They're a collector for a reason, and they ended up drawing out of it, I guess, for lack of a better term. Like they got enough power where they were able to always leave up Amri's choice and still deploy threats, and eventually wrecked my day. So shout out to Collector for being awesome.
Well played.
Well played indeed. All right, that's the what's the play, which leads us to our constructed corner. And well, JohnHolio is
That's me.
Yeah, JohnHolio is our brewer of the three of us, and public enemy number one right now off of the back of the campaign. So shout out to Direwolf for making a campaign that did influence constructed a little bit. Is Endra, and Endra is one of your primary factions, and you've been brewing with her a little bit, right?
Yeah, I don't want to share my spicy Endra deck.
Yeah, that's fine.
With
Just
the world. You just want to talk about?
Yeah, talk
Endra?
about what you've seen.
Oh well,
Shavka.
Shavka's song "Cannot Be Stopped" is the word on the street, and seems to be pretty true. Like, it's a fun card, and it's it has
So I tried brewing with it, and I made the Genev version with or even hand. I'm sorry, I made even-handed Genev.
Yeah,
so
I tried one of those too.
Yeah, it was pretty neat because you get to bounce the golem to draw a bunch of cards, but then the top end of it is Zol's Rest, because you get to between the decimate, bounce it back in your hand. You play the Endra that gives you the Shavka song that gives you the power to play your next, all the stuff. It's a ton of fun. I love Soul's Rest. Anytime I could take extra challenge, I'm going to. So that's the version I've been playing. What other versions have you seen?
Yeah, I've definitely seen an even Praxis version without the blue splash. I've seen a lot of graveyard based versions because it, unlike the even-handed golem, which didn't originally have it, but it has void bound, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of leaves the shadow based versions out of the equation if you're going the even route. But instead of doing more bouncing and replaying it, people are doing void stuff, right? Like Last Chance, Stark Return, Scream even. And then I've seen similar versions that go kind of like a route that's very similar to that, but are better like in the mirror match, where you play more counter magic, specifically like Felrock's Choice and what's the other one? It's like a shadow card that basically does the same thing, where you can negate and then play the spell.
Oh yeah,
so
Corrupt, I believe.
Yeah, Corrupt. So you start snatching the opponent's songs when they're trying to, go off and
that's
use all their
dope.
power. So, like, that's a cool way to go too. And then Kamado posted a really sweet Genev non-even version. That one seemed like, just out of the box or whatever, as far as the publicly available ones. Like, I really liked that version a lot. It seemed very powerful and just resilient. It's the Shadow one has a lot of the same resiliency, but people are running Void Hate. Just because Reanimator was already kind of a big threat coming off the ECQ. And so I think that just as far as the meta goes, just the bouncy one might be like the best version right now. But man, it is a fun card to play. It's not so fun when you have to play against it every game, or like
it
80,
is
90%.
all over the ladder right now.
It's very popular, right?
Oh my god,
Right.
It is everywhere.
You play with your sound off, or you're going to be hearing a lot of Shavka songs, I tell you that.
True story. And excuse me, there's probably people that don't know. So Endra is Fire 2-drop for 2/2. Mastery 6. Yep, Mastery 6. And when Endra comes into play, you play a Song of Shavka, which is a 1-cost spell that deals 1 damage.
2 cost.
2 costs, yeah. I'm sorry, yeah. Sorry.
I mean, you play it for free off of her, but
no, but you're right. We talked about it in the set review.
It matters.
So it for 2 costs, well, it does kind of matter. Some people reread it and stuff like that.
Rereads and prodigious sorcery, even works pretty good.
So 2 cost, fire, double fire, double fire spell deals 1 damage, and then you gain 1 power, and then it adds for every Shavka song in your void. So when you cast your second one, it deals 2 damage, it gives you 2 power, your third one 3 damage, 3 power, etc., etc. And the whole purpose of all these decks is just to create as many Endras as possible and play her as many times as possible, so you end up like Shavka songing people for 6 and 7.
It's like storming off from your hand.
Yeah,
it's magic term.
It's a lot of fun, and I think the deck would be a lot less unbearable if everyone wasn't playing it. But
it's everyone's shiny new toy.
Yeah,
so it's extremely popular right now.
Literally, it's like
I'm over it.
every other game. And then the thing is, you don't know because someone will start off with Stone Scar. You're like, okay, cool, Stone Scar. Oh no, they just played Endra.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, oh, this deck isn't gonna have Shopka.
Here comes the blue influence.
And I call it Shopka. It's Endra, but
And then it's like, oh, it's like cool Praxis. I was wondering if this deck's still around. Oh nope, there comes
just Endra again. Yeah, exactly. She just like comes out, revealing her plan to the world.
Hey, is this the Yeti deck? Oh no, it's Shendra.
Yeah, you played against a Yeti deck that's playing Endra earlier today.
Yeti's with Endra, right?
Yeah,
featuring
people are just slotting her in just about every deck, trying her out. You know, she's really making brewing a lot of fun right now. I mean, the whole new set came out, so there's a lot to be brewed with, but she's just the flavor of the week, that's for sure.
I'm just running mono silence. I just silence every single Endra that they play.
Yeah, if a lot of these decks have 2 power open, that's a dangerous game though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
They can devour it, or they can just bounce it in response, or
throwing it in there, haunting screams. Man, come on.
Well, I made it to Masters with Combre, so I just left my choices up for the Haunted Scream one. I block because they send it in there. I block and kill it, and then I just leave 2 power up the rest of the game. And when they're like,
"How do you attack though?" Right? You scream it out, and then just start making copies of the screamed one, which are super upgraded with the flying and stuff. Oof, it's out of hand real quick.
Torch to be fast spell again.
Yeah,
seems like
that. The torch change already opened up Scream decks to be a thing again, but it really didn't, suddenly become popular again or anything like that. Like I saw more than I did the week before or whatever.
Yeah,
this is really helping Scream make a comeback right now, and I mean I'm seeing her in Expedition.
Is there a thing to run the Huru deck with all the like the 1 card hate? You know what I'm talking about, like Rain of Frogs and Royal Decree and Caltrops and City Ban.
In Expedition, that like a lot of those cards don't exist though. Like, and the thing with the non-Expedition version is that you're basically always running the red merchant, so you can have one in your market.
So I mean, these decks. The thing is, though, they really need Endra to win, right? There's no alternate win con.
Well, one of the ones I brewed for Expedition is full of win cons. Like it seems very good. Like I can't wait to. I think that's probably what I'm playing in the next EC. But yeah, most of the ones we're seeing on ladder, she is like a key part. It's just a combo deck straight up, and if you don't ever draw your merchant or your Endra, you just basically do nothing and lose. Yeah. So it's like a combo deck in that sense for the most part, and so sometimes you just lose to yourself or your draws or whatever.
Death was always on Waylay, man. I wonder if that's
Waylay is pretty good because not only can she get rid of the Endras, but you steal the deck
void,
or steal the void. So what work they've already done? Like it's a build up process. Like if you manage to get those spells out of the opponent's void, that's a big problem for them.
Yeah,
Waylay is pretty legit.
Properly,
you can roll Decreer.
It's just hard.
The timing's right.
Like.
I mean,
it's never in the hand.
Yeah, exactly. Like as long as you have some way to hold up the power to either bounce her or sacrifice her or something, like you're basically just playing out that first Endra to avoid getting rolled Decreed.
Yeah,
for example, she's safer on the battlefield, and like that first one, she replenishes 1 power. So like, especially on 3, that lets you player and hold up 2 power, which is what you need for most of the fast balancing devour type effects or counter spells.
Yeah, getting that power back is just what really makes her absurd, because you're just like, oh, okay, they only have 4 power. Oh, never mind, they have 7.
And that scaling, like, it gets out of hand really quick. Like,
oh yeah, it does.
Yeah, she can win the game out of nowhere, it seems.
For sure,
she's a fun one.
Now I feel like I need to brew with one of the other champions. Or wait, I need to brew with the Rakano card. That's what I need to do.
Yeah, I still haven't done that one myself.
Oh,
I haven't had that much time for brewing this week.
Is there a weapon that stops people from like... Oh, I'm trying to think if there's a way I could make that Rakano... Like, there's got to be equipment or something that pulls into play. Like, make the counter to Endra, but on the backhand. Kind of like how Pacifier stops.
Well, one of the weapons we talked about in our set review was using the foil, the Zolta foil, which silences.
Yes.
And so you could play your thing, play the weapon for free and silence, but again, it's vulnerable to those anti-silence strategies that the Ender decks are running, but
Fair.
If you do it at the right time, it might work out for you.
Fair, yeah. All right, cool, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it. I think we're going to call it a show here. So once again, you guys can follow us at EJthePodcast on Twitter. Stay up to date whenever we stream, whenever new videos go up, whenever this podcast goes up, stuff like that. Easy follow, just do it there. And then, of course, the YouTube channel. Look up EternalJourney on YouTube. You guys can catch... No, you guys already heard it in the beginning. I'm not going to say it. Just really appreciate it. You can catch me streaming live every Sunday, Monday, Tuesday at twitch.tv/Jedi_EJ.
I'm going back in.
Going back in. Getting ready for war. Where's your blaster at?
I left it in the car.
Fair. In the speeder?
Yes.
Or in the AT-AT. It looks so good. You're just chilling right behind Riz, or right in front of Rizan. So yeah, guys, of course, as always, thank you so much for all the ongoing support in game, in Twitter, on the Reddit posts, all that. Like us, share us, subscribe, all that good stuff. Uptick, anything you can do to support the show really goes a long way towards letting me know and us know that we're doing the right thing. And these guys don't get ever tired of giving me all their time and all my great ambitions. So yeah, speaking of which, John, where can people find you at?
Yeah, I love hanging out in Jedi's Twitch chat and Jedi's Discord and all the other Jedi locations. Yeah, I get a warm welcome despite being a stormtrooper. So, I also occasionally hang out on Twitch, twitch.tv/JohnHolio, and I hang out in the Farming Eternal Discord as well. So find me in any of those places.
Man, I really feel like I should have done a better job picking my co-hosts, considering I have a Sith and a Stormtrooper.
It's the costume I got. What can I do?
I mean, I guess we're all Star Wars themed, so it works out.
Yeah.
Speaking of Farming Eternal and the Misplay Podcast are our counterparts. They are fantastic sources for both limited and constructed. Definitely great guys. Patumaro and Hats on Lamps, as well as Parmalee and Gato Sujo, are great guys. Definitely check out both their podcasts. They're great resources. Right now, I think they're both every other week. So definitely tune into that either way. So far, these guys haven't got tired of me dragging them out every week. So we're still going to stay weekly. It's a lot of fun. Eternal's giving us plenty of content to talk about. But definitely, once again, Farming Eternal and the Misplay Podcast, giving them some shout outs and some love. As well as, let's see, Enrouch1. That's a great streamer.
Oh yeah, we have a great Twitch community. I love all these
our
guys.
Twitch community is absolutely amazing. So shout out to Enrouch, as well as Cassandrith, Kalebovich, Yodabite, Noverb, Mercurial Blue. There you go. Mercurial's always giving me a shout out on Twitter, so shout out to Mercurial Blue as well. And Circus Sparkles. There we go. That's another fun. She also does a variety stream.
E-Money and Gibbon.
E-Money, Gibbon plus. Man, Owen, Old Iron Nuts. Yeah, we have great.
Everyone brings their own thing to the game. Like,
it really is
really
true.
Enjoyable.
Alex, where can people catch you, brother?
So, like JohnHolio said, in your Twitch chat or on your Discord, feel free to @ me on Discord or send me a direct message. Yeah.
Sweet.
Pretty much.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Once again, this is episode 46, right? 47. Wow, we're creeping
47.
up there. Stay tuned. For episode 50, we're going to be doing something a little special. I might actually even post a giveaway or something that we might do and reveal the winner on episode 50. I actually might do this. Stay tuned. Keep a lookout on Twitter and stuff for that. But yeah, guys, don't know where our next episode is going to be. Probably going to be interviewing a couple of very special people that to help contribute to the community. So stay tuned for that. I don't want to jinx us considering how long it took us to get this episode up and running. But once again, thank you guys for always tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm Jedi. This is JohnHolio. That's Darth Herman 2. We are the Eternal Journey Podcast. You guys are fantastic. And as always, until next time, happy gaming.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Good luck in your drafts.